What if the deepest instinct in women isn't kindness, empathy, or even love, but control, not domination, not manipulation? Control, rooted in fear, carved by biology, enforced by survival. We've been told stories that women are nurturing by nature, that they seek harmony, that they are emotional caregivers, wired to connect and soothe. But what if these traits are not the whole picture, just the mask? Carl Jung didn't view femininity as one-dimensional. He believed in the anima, the feminine within all of us. But he also saw how unexamined instincts twist our behavior into survival strategies disguised as personality. Today, we ask a question few dare to ask. What instinct inside the feminine psyche fights to stay hidden? Because it scares even the one who holds it. It's not evil, it's ancient, and unless we face it, it will continue to shape every relationship, every decision, every illusion we call love. Let's begin. Every girl, even before she becomes a woman, learns something unspoken. That safety isn't given, it must be built, and often controlled. From childhood, she feels the tension in a room, the disapproval in a glance, the threat in unpredictability. So she learns to read people, please people, avoid conflict, smile on cue, not out of kindness, out of necessity. She learns, if you can manage others' emotions, you can manage your own fear. And so begins the instinct, not to dominate, but to stabilize her environment at all costs. This isn't manipulation in the villainous sense. It's survival in its softest form, a subtle shaping of space, a silent choreography of tone, timing, and emotion, to maintain control so she doesn't lose safety. But here's the paradox. The more control she seeks, the more disconnected she becomes from her true power. Because power doesn't come from control. It comes from integration of light and shadow. So what happens? When the instinct that was meant to protect her starts to control her, we're only getting started. There is a kind of power that doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't even speak. It adjusts. It pleases. It makes everything look fine. And that's precisely what makes it dangerous. In countless relationships, families, and societies, this quiet instinct to create emotional balance has shaped entire generations of behavior. Women learn early that being liked can mean being safe, that smoothing over tension earns approval, that staying agreeable keeps the peace. But is it peace or suppression? Carl Jung warned us, the psyche doesn't forget. When parts of ourselves are repressed for too long, especially our instinctual truths, they don't disappear, they mutate. And what begins as a coping strategy soon becomes a pattern, not just in one woman, but across a collective feminine psyche. Imagine this. A girl grows up watching her mother constantly accommodate her father's moods. Never challenge, always support. She learns that love means self-erasure. She carries this into her teenage years, smiling when uncomfortable, agreeing when confused, quiet when violated, and then into adulthood, apologizing for needs, overthinking texts, walking on eggshells, all in the name of being easy to love. But love without boundaries isn't love, it's fear, wearing the mask of devotion. And what's worse, most women don't even know they're doing it, because it feels natural, it feels good, it feels feminine. But here's where things turn, because the more a woman shapes herself to be non-threatening, the more she loses connection with her true instinct, the wild, primal part of her that knows what she wants, what she needs, and what she'll no longer tolerate. And this part, it doesn't whisper, it doesn't adjust, it erupts, often in ways that look irrational, emotional, dramatic. But what if they're not irrational at all? What if those moments of outburst are just the echoes of an instinct denied for too long? The truth is, there is something in every woman that wants to break the rules, not out of rebellion, but out of remembering. Remembering what it means to feel, to want, to own her reality. And that instinct is no longer sleeping. Somewhere between silence and explosion, there's a moment most people never see, because it happens behind the eyes. It's not when she yells, it's not when she walks away, it's not even when she breaks down. It's before all that. The second she realizes she's not living her life, she's performing it. And in that instant, the illusion collapses. All the agreements she made, to keep the peace, to be liked, to seem good, suddenly feel like chains, not choices, prisons built with her own smile. You've probably seen it. maybe in a partner, a sister, a friend, maybe in yourself. That look, where something behind the eyes goes quiet, then fierce. She's done apologizing. She's done making herself smaller. She's done pretending safety is worth the price of her soul. This isn't rage, it's return to instinct, to fire, to herself. And from that point forward, nothing can ever be the same. If you're a woman watching this, maybe you felt it. Maybe you're feeling it now. That low, quiet voice inside you that says, I can't do this anymore. Listen to it. Not because you should rebel, but because there's a part of you that's tired of disappearing in your own life. And if you're a man watching this, ask yourself, have I ever loved a woman for who she is, or for how well she made me feel safe? Because real connection doesn't come from being managed, it comes from being met. And both of you, woman or man, deserve to be met as you truly are. This is the moment she wakes up. And once she does, the world around her has two options: adapt or fall away. The rest of this story depends on what you do next. Real power doesn't control, it clarifies. It doesn't beg to be loved. It chooses who's allowed close. After the collapse, after the moment she breaks, something unexpected happens. She doesn't become louder, she becomes still. Not the stillness of suppression, but the stillness of someone who no longer needs to chase approval. She finally sees it. Her worth was never in her ability to be pleasing. Her value was never in how well she could adapt to others. It was always in her presence and the boundaries that protect it. Here's what no one tells you. When a woman stops trying to be good, she starts becoming real. And the real her, she's not always soft, not always gentle, not always agreeable, but she is honest, she is awake, and she is finally free. This is the power Carl Jung hinted at when he spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, not just a persona, not just a mask, but the union of shadow and light. She no longer needs to control others to feel safe. She controls her own space. She speaks when she wants, not to manage your reaction, but to honor her own truth. She walks away not to punish, but to preserve peace. And maybe for the first time in her life, she experiences silence. Not as fear, but as freedom. Because now there's nothing left to prove, no role left to play, no script to follow. Only a woman, fully present, fully awake, fully her own. But here's the paradox of real power. The moment she no longer needs to be chosen is the moment everyone starts to see her, not for who they want her to be, but for who she truly is. What happens when the world finally meets her? That's next. People say they want authenticity, but most don't know what it really looks like. Authenticity isn't polished, it isn't always nice, and it sure as hell doesn't make others comfortable. So, when a woman finally stops editing herself to be more digestible, the world reacts. Some pull away, some push back, and a few finally step forward with respect, because now they're not dealing with a version of her, they're dealing with her. No more emotional caretaking, no more sugar-coated yeses, no more apologizing for having a spine. Just truth, not to hurt, but to be whole. Here's the truth most won't say out loud. The woman who used to hold everything together by sacrificing herself is gone. In her place is someone far more dangerous to the status quo, someone who doesn't need your approval, but will deeply honor your presence if it's rooted in truth. This is the shift, from make sure everyone's okay to make sure I am. And when that shift happens, relationships change, not because she becomes difficult, but because the rules of engagement are finally honest. Now, silence doesn't feel empty, it feels clean. Now, disagreement isn't a threat, it's a sign of boundaries. Now, love isn't measured by how much she gives, but by how much she's willing to receive without self-erasing. This is not the collapse of femininity, it's the rise of integrated womanhood, feminine and fierce, nurturing and non-negotiable. She's not becoming something new, she's finally returning to what she always was, before the conditioning, before the masks. And now, the question is no longer, how can I be enough for them? The question is, who has the capacity to stand with me without trying to reshape me? That answer is coming next. You'd think that becoming more authentic would bring you closer to people, but often it does the opposite. Because when a woman finally stands in her truth, she doesn't just change how she sees herself, she changes how she allows others to treat her. And that is threatening. To the ones who benefited from her silence, to the ones who mistook her compliance for kindness, to the ones who loved the mask more than the person. So here's what happens. Some friends disappear. Old lovers grow cold. Family gets uncomfortable. Not because she's become toxic, but because she's become clear. Clarity always looks like conflict to those who relied on your confusion. And in that clarity, a new kind of loneliness appears. Not the loneliness of not being loved, but the loneliness of no longer being willing to be half-loved. There's grief in this stage. No one talks about it. Because when you break the pattern, you also break the bonds that were built inside that pattern. And it hurts, but beneath that pain is something deeper: peace. Not everyone will walk with her. Not everyone should, because the ones who truly see her now, they don't want to fix her. They don't fear her fire. They respect her flame. This is where new relationships are born. Not in the ruins of the old, but in the strength of her redefined self. People don't meet her anymore based on her past. They meet her based on her presence, and the space between who leaves and who stays. That space becomes sacred, a clearing, a gate, an invitation for only the real to enter. This isn't just a healing, it's a filter, and what passes through it will shape the future she's about to build. Who survives her rebirth? Only those who are ready for the truth. She doesn't look for perfect anymore. She looks for present, not the man who says the right thing, but the one who listens when nothing is being said. Not the friend who's always there in the good times, but the one who stays when the shadows come out. Her standards haven't just changed, they've evolved. Because she's no longer building a life based on potential, she's building it on pattern. And when you've survived losing yourself, you don't gamble with your peace. This is the power of becoming conscious. She no longer asks, "Will they like me?" She asks, "Do I feel safe, seen, and sovereign in this connection?" If the answer is no, she lets go, not out of coldness, out of clarity. Because now she knows, staying in what feels almost right is the fastest way to abandon yourself again. She chooses differently now, not out of fear of being alone, but out of honor for her alignment. She creates space before filling it. She listens to her body before her mind. She pauses before she pleases. She knows, love is not about how much you can give up. It's about how deeply you can show up, fully, unapologetically. She no longer sees solitude as a curse. She sees it as a calibration, a reset, a homecoming, a place where her intuition sharpens and her energy returns. This is where her new story begins, not from pain, but from presence. So now the question isn't, will someone choose me? The real question is, am I choosing myself with every word, with every step, with every breath? The final chapter begins here. She's not who she was, not the girl who laughed to keep the peace, not the woman who bent until she disappeared. She's not the fixer. She's not the forgiver by default. She's not the performer of politeness to earn belonging. She's not angry. She's awake. And there's a difference. Anger reacts. Awakening rebuilds. She's rebuilding. A life, a way of loving, a way of being that doesn't ask permission anymore. This is what it looks like when a woman comes home to herself. Quiet boundaries. Clear yes. Firm number, no drama, no explanation, no performance. Just presence, just truth. Just a woman who finally belongs to herself. And in this self-belonging, something extraordinary happens. She stops waiting, stops fixing, stops shrinking to fit someone else's story, and starts writing her own. Scene shift, visual of stillness, nature, eyes open. Maybe she still walks the same streets. Maybe she still smiles the same. But make no mistake, she's not walking the same path. Because now she walks with herself. Not against, not beneath, not outside. With in alignment, in wholeness. People might say she's changed. She hasn't. She's just remembered. Who she is, what she carries, what she will no longer carry for anyone else. She's no longer surviving. She's choosing. She's creating. She's arriving. And the world, it may not be ready for her, but that's no longer her problem. Because this time, she's not walking out to be seen. She's walking in to be real. And when a woman walks like that, the world doesn't change her. she changes the world.